Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us back here in the fourth week of the business coaching series on how to become an importer of Indonesian products to Australia. And still within the topic on how to start your business in Victoria and Tasmania, our first session of today's program will cover a general overview on how to make a business contract, such as why do you need to make a contract and what are the essential elements of a contract. This session will be delivered by our esteemed guest speaker, Mr. Konfir Kabo, Solicitor and Managing Partner of Kabo Lawyers. We will continue the topic of how to transport your product from Indonesia to Australia, cargo and warehouse issues, as well as how to find the right logistic partners. In this second session, it will be delivered by Mr. Ronnie Tay and his two partners, Mr. Michael Pan and Mr. Lucas Wijaya. Mr. Ronnie is the owner of Grand Laguna, Grand Eastern Group, and owner and partner of Tambo Chiet Restaurant. Before we begin our program, we would like to remind you that this Zoom webinar will be recorded and uploaded to the Consulate General of Indonesia for Victoria and Tasmania's YouTube channel. There were previous week's programs can be found as well. During the program, you're welcome to send any questions to the speakers via our chat box or ask your questions directly during the questions and answer session at the end of each session. We would also like to thank PBIA Victoria, PBIA Tasmania, Australia Indonesia Youth Association, and Buset Magazine as our partners for this program. Let me introduce myself. My name is Phoebe. I'll be your host and as well as MC for this particular program this week. And without further ado, we would like to begin today's program by welcoming His Excellency Kunchoro Waseso, Consul General of the Republic of Indonesia for Victoria and Tasmania, to deliver an opening remark. Mr. Kunchoro, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Phoebe. I hope that my voice is now clear like crystals. You can hear me, right, Phoebe?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Very good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Pak Konfir Kabo. It's great to see you again.
Thank you, Pak.
And then we have also Pak Lucas Wijaya, and of course my brother Michael Pan. I just know him here, but you are very great people that you spare your time to be with us right now. I thank you again also to Phoebe. Last time we met in our interview for Buset Magazine, Phoebe. Thank you for being the moderator today. And of course, I will greet also our future business people, let's say our young people, and also distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the participants. I again warmly welcome you to this fourth week of our business coaching, of our serial business coaching. Well, I fully understand that outside the weather is very good right now. We have like around 20 degrees Celsius. So you can imagine if you live around here in Selkida or somewhere in South Melbourne, then you just hang around in the beach. That's really beautiful. But I thank you very much. We have our time here despite of our lockdown time. So we have our time together here on a virtual meeting to have the serial business coaching. I would like to start also by wishing you and your families of course, my personal best wishes for your health, your safety in these very difficult times. The lockdown and curfew are still in place. So please stay safe, stay healthy, and of course, adhere to the local government health protocol. Now, as for our business coaching today, the session is the last session in what so we call as starting a business in Victoria and Tasmania module of our business coaching. So next week, that will be the last meeting of our business coaching, and we will discuss the new module about the digital transformation in business. Before I continue, I forgot, Munirah, please also take a note that beside this digital program in the virtual, maybe we can also make like a kind of written book for what we have done, that we can also distribute to the all participants who follow from the beginning or even partially. Maybe it will be very beneficial at that. And I'm also very happy we will have such capable speakers for today's very important sessions. Firstly, my profound gratitude and appreciation to Pak Konfer Kabo, Pak Ronite, Pak Lucas Wijaya again, and Mr. Michael Pan atau Pak Pan. Thank you for being here and share your important knowledge later on. I would like also to extend my gratitude to Phoebe again, of course, as a moderator today. And if I recall, last week we discussed the formulation of a business model, market research, to making a very detailed travel plan. And today, the session can be likened to understanding road science, where we can meet our logistical needs while on the road. For me, the business contract will guide you to keep on the right track. And even if there is a problem, that will help you to settle the problem more convincingly. And that is the business of a contract, of course. A contract can be anything, a formal written document, or sometimes just a simple handshake deal. A written contract offers more certainty for parties involved. They clearly lay out details of what we agree. Pak Konfer will discuss that much more. The business contract is a broad topic. To be able to fully comprehend it will take some time. Pak Kabo is here to help us. His law firm has various expertise, ranging from commercial and corporate, legal disputes, to contracts and agreements. In addition of being a versed lawyer, he is also a seasoned businessman as well. So we have him as a speaker on the subject today. Distinguished speakers, moderator, and participants. I remember in June 2020, the International Finance Corporation of the World Bank Group mentions that logistic firms which are involved in the movement, in the storage, and also on the flow of goods have been directly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. As an integral part of the value chains, both within and across international borders, logistic firms are facilitating trade and commerce and helping business to get their products to customers. Supply chain disruption to the sector caused by the pandemic could therefore impact competitiveness, economic growth, and job creations. The statement I just mentioned illustrates how strategic the logistic issue is. Therefore, on this very exceptional occasions, we will have Pak Ronite, among them are Pak Lucas Wijaya and Pak Michael Pan, as our speakers for the second subject, particularly relating to the cargo, and find right logistic partner. I'm happy also we have them today. Pak Roni from the Grand Laguna, of course, informed us that they are still with the colleagues here, and those who directly handle the logistic for Pak Roni's business. Considering the skills of Pak Roni business and the task is not trivial, so what's better than directly learning from him, from people on the ground? Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I thank you very much. I thank you very much for all of you being here today. And I hope that everybody is holding up during what we have been long and wearing a period of for all of us. I thank you very much, and hopefully you have a very fruitful discussion. Thank you very much. I give it back to you, Phoebe.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kunchoro, for your opening remarks. We will now continue with our first session. But before we continue with our first session, we'll need to start with a photo session. In Indonesian culture, if we don't take a picture, it's considered that the event is not been done yet. So with that being said, let's welcome, please, I would like the operators to please stand by and lead this photo session. And
Thank you.
please, participants, please also turn on your video so we can take a picture together.
Okay. Dear participant, please be ready. Make sure your camera is on. I will take a picture of us. Within 3 seconds, I will start it. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay, once again. 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Operator, are you done?
Done, Bibi. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. We shall now begin with our first speaker. I would like to welcome Mr. Confer Cabo. Confer is the...
Phoebe, before you start again, can I have
Yes.
something to say to all participants, all the speakers? I really do apologize that I still have some other program ahead, so I will leave you all with the very, very excellent speakers and also my team, Munira. Hopefully that you are going to have a very fruitful discussion today. And of course, stay safe and stay healthy to everybody. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Kunchoro.
Bye.
Okay. With that being said, we will now continue again, Mr. Confer Cabo. Allow me to introduce Confer. Confer is the founding partner of Cabo Lawyers, a law firm based in Melbourne, Australia. He is also the CEO of Aksara Group, a surface station investment trust. Confer was born in Makassar, Indonesia, and he studied law and commerce at Monash University. He was admitted as a solicitor and barrister of the Supreme Court of Victoria and the High Court of Australia in 1998. He is also a fellow of the Australia and New Zealand College of Notaries and currently resides in Melbourne with his wife and 2 children. Confer is an avid art collector for the past decade and a passionate patron of the arts through Project 11, a philanthropic initiative he established with his wife. Project 11 works with key institutions such as the University of Melbourne, Monash University, and RMIT University, as well as other arts organizations such as the National Gallery of Australia, Art Centres Melbourne, Multicultural Arts Victoria, Melbourne Recital Centre, and Musica Viva. Aside from the arts, Confer also supports health initiatives such as the Autism Research with OTARC, Australian Prostate Cancer Research, and the Skin Cancer Foundation. He currently sits on the board of Centre of Asian Business and Economics in the University of Melbourne, Australia-Indonesia Art Forum, as well as the VCA Foundation. Confer has also launched a few projects in Indonesia, including the establishment of an education center in Bandung with Melbourne Polytechnic to deliver audio engineering courses, as well as movie productions. Now, without further delay, we welcome Mr. Confer Cabo. Mr. Confer Cabo, floor is yours.
Thank you, Phoebe. Selamat pagi, Ibu Munira, fellow speakers. Thank you for the opportunity. Can you hear me okay? Yes, okay. Yeah. Can we start with that slide show? We'll just get straight to the presentation. Can we bring up my slide, please? Thank you. We'll just go straight to given the time, I'll just go straight to the first page. Yeah. So there'll be an offer. This is a very quick discussion and following on the point that Pak Konjen makes about contracts. Basically, in Australia, which is a common law system, which is a bit different to Indonesia civil law system, contracts can be in writing, by oral, or by performance. Obviously, in writing is better because it provides clarity and certainty. Yeah. So I'll go through these 7 points. I think they're very important, which is just firstly understanding your position, your knowledge. You got to understand the clauses, finalize details, agree on things that not negotiable, and the writing has to be clear, and other contingencies. Before I start, I want to, there's a very simple question a lot of people ask me. The first thing is, do I really need a lawyer to do a contract? The answer is no, you don't need a lawyer. Why a lawyer is important, and let's be direct about this. Lawyer is not the cheapest people to have working on your contracts. You need a lawyer because of, from my perspective, of 3 things. First, lawyers has insight of issues that you might have, or you will encounter in your relationship through your business contracts. Because business contracts is a little bit like a marriage. Yeah. At the beginning, it's all very sweet, everyone's very happy, and people only will refer to the contracts when things go bad, or when people are making too much money. That's when they start to realize, hang on a minute, what can I do to improve my position or to protect my position? So that's the first thing that you need. You usually rely on your lawyer. The second thing is that lawyers has usually experience, an experienced lawyer will understand the issues that has happened in someone in your situation. Yeah. And the third thing is that lawyers provide you with a third-party view, so it's an unbiased perspective, which means they look at it and say, hang on a minute, understand that this is your friend, this is maybe your family, but these are the kind of things that you have to keep in mind. So can I please, Bharati, go to the first, the next, yes. So the first thing is understanding your position. It sounds very simple, but it's probably one of the hardest things to do. Before you go into a contract, and Indonesians, and I'm sorry, Muniro and everyone Indonesian, Indonesians are usually very, they don't like contracts, because the first thing they used to ask me, do I really need to read this? This is really thick, so many pages and pages. My answer is always, if it's not important, it shouldn't be in that pages. So if it's really thick, it's because it's important, and you probably need to understand, you probably have to read it. So before you enter into any contract, you have to understand your objective. The first, why do you need the contract? If it's a very short thing, you probably don't need a contract, because it might be wasting your time. It might be wasting everyone's time. You also have to know what are the non-negotiables. Now, non-negotiables, it's things that you cannot change. Yeah, like maybe the country of origin. In the case of importation, the country of origin or the currency of the contract. Maybe you have to do in US dollars. Maybe you have to do it in Indonesian rupiah, or you can do it in Australian dollars. Those are the things that you cannot change. The third thing is about knowing your position. Are you negotiating a contract? Are you negotiating from a position of strength, or are you negotiating from a position of weakness? Because if you don't have much to negotiate, you don't have much power. Let's say you are a distributor of a Coca-Cola, for example. Coca-Cola give you a contract. You don't go around and tell Coca-Cola what to do with their contract, because sometimes a big negotiation like that, they basically say, take it or leave it. There's no negotiation. You sign, or if you're not interested, thank you very much, and please leave the room. We actually have a client like that. They're importing something that is very valuable. There will be 5 distributors, and we are drafting a contract, and we tell all the distributors, these are the contracts. It's not negotiable. Just fill in your name, sign, or if you're not interested, we'll talk to the other distributors. So you can do certain things when you understand your position. Fourth is jurisdiction. This is very important. When you have a contract, especially when it's importing, it basically means you will be dealing with 1 or 2 different countries. They all have different laws, different understanding of contracts. So you have to understand that. And the last thing is dispute resolution. When you're dealing with countries that has a very, very difficult dispute resolution provision, which is basically negotiation. Someone like China, for example, if you're doing a contract with China, you don't want the dispute resolution in China, because it's very difficult to negotiate in China. So your dispute resolution mechanism might be that you meet in Singapore in the old days, yeah, before COVID, or in Hong Kong, where there's clearer way to dispute, to resolve things. But can I please go to the second slide, please? This is a very important thing when you do a contract, which is industrial knowledge. If you don't know anything about industry that you are dealing with, that's when you probably need a lawyer that understands the industry or an expert. For example, I have a bit of experience in movie industry, and I don't know much about movie industry contracts. So my contracts, I should go to another lawyer that has experience in movie industry. And I said, look, can you please explain to me what are the things that I need to worry about? This is when you're dealing with some Australian standards and things like that. You also need to understand the standards, the industry governance, and in the what I'd like to say is Australia is probably one of the most complicated and highly regulated market in the world. Yeah, the standard is high. There's a lot of laws. The market's small, and sometimes it's very difficult for anyone to understand why we are so protected. But when you're dealing with food or anything that is that can cause contamination, quarantine, etc., you have to understand that Australia is an island, and it really protects the border from a lot of pests and diseases because it relies heavily on agricultural industry. So you need to understand that, and also you need to understand what is the market reality. For example, if you're wanting to open a restaurant, for example, you need to understand what is the going rental amount, what is the outgoings issues, what are the things that you need to worry about, employment, the industry standard, the work cover, etc., etc. So these are kind of things that you need to understand. And if you're in food importation, you need to understand about ACIS, customs, ACCC. For example, someone say, oh, I want to I want you to become an importer of bird's nest, which is a very expensive product out of Indonesia. You can tell them, look, it's incredibly difficult. It's very highly regulated items, and it's probably one of those things that you cannot import without really, really stringent things. Or the other things that's very famous, Indonesian very famous item is kopi luwak. Kopi luwak is not, from my limited understanding, is not, you can't import kopi luwak without being processed heavily because of the diseases and the pests issue. So those are kind of things that you need to do. Thank you for that. So next thing is the negotiate and refine the clauses. So it's you need to be clear from the beginning, what are things that can go wrong. And most of the time when you start the relationship, it's like a marriage. Everyone is, it's all very pretty. Everyone's very happy. You don't think anything's going to go wrong because they are your friends, your family. And the first thing you need to understand that when it comes to a dispute, they do not remember, they do not recognize your friends or families. And the worst disputes are usually between families and friends. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that where you have to be careful. What are your interests? And you have to understand what are the non-negotiables of each party. Yeah. There is a thing that in Indonesian we said, we are a bit, sometimes we are a bit too tolerant. Yeah? Nggak apa-apa is the word. Nggak apa-apa lah, biarin aja. That's not. It's a good attitude when you enter into a negotiation, but when you go into a contract, you need to be clear. There's a difference between fair and unclear. Unclear is nggak apa-apa, biarin aja. That's a bit unclear. Fair is the approach where you have a latitude in terms of where if things go wrong, this will happen. So remember, I'd like to say contract is just a piece of paper. At the end of the day, it's a bit like a marriage certificate. It's only show the intention of the parties. And when things go wrong, you have to go to court before the contract can be challenged. But if you're clear in the beginning and all the items are laid out, usually if things go wrong, the separation is much cleaner as well. When you're not clear in the beginning, that's when things can get really messy. And especially when you have a handshake agreement, that's when things get messy because no one knows what you want to do, what you wanted to do if things go wrong. Can I go to the next page, please? I'm mindful of time. Now, finalize the details. Seems easy, but it's one of the more complicated things because you have to identify the correct parties, the correct information, the correct monetary values, the dates have to be correct. And sometimes a lot of people are not detailed enough. So for example, if you're dealing with a company in Indonesia, you need to know the Indonesian company full name, full address, etc., etc. If you're dealing with a person, get that. If you're dealing with CFA, which is like an unincorporated association, you need to know that, and you need to know the ABN. This is all for taxation, so it has to be very clear and correct. And don't complete a contract without completing all the details correctly. So these are the kind of things. It's very easy because especially in Indonesia, sometimes the identity, your passport, the ID, the address can be all different. So it's very important to get it all right. And if you're not sure, get a copy of the incorporation documents. The next thing is that you have to agree on the non-negotiables. I think I mentioned the non-negotiables before, and non-negotiables. The most important non-negotiables could be the currency. It has to be in AUD, it has to be in USD, and some people say, look, I can only sell to you in USD because blah. Okay, that's fine. You have to understand what are the restrictions and obligations. It is very easy to understand if you're clear in the beginning, like payment terms. They sometimes say, look, your payment terms is 7 days, and that is strict. And when it says strict, then you have to follow it. And who pays, like logistics, who pays for the clearance, who pays for this, who pays for that? Because a lot of time, the little things like this are the one that can create problems in the future. Can I go to the next page, please? This is very important. A lot of people think that contract has to be thick and hard to read. That is not the right way of writing contract. The better contract is very simple. And if you can say it in one word, please say in one word, don't say in one sentence. The old-fashioned law writing, we like to use word like unconscionable, which means unfair. Why you use unconscionable? Because it's 4 syllables rather than unfair, which is 2 syllables, and you can charge a bit more. But now the whole point is making the contract very simple, very clear, because that would eliminate all the problems, and it makes it easier for anyone to read the contract. This is where it's very important for anyone. If you read a contract and you're not sure, don't sign it. Don't assume, because assumption is very difficult. Don't assume, I think the other side knows, or you know what, my lawyer understands it, so I'll just sign it. Don't do that. Because if you're not clear, chances are your lawyer is not clear. So I always tell my client, if you're not sure about what the terms of the contract, I can't make it clear for you, because if you're not clear, I will never be clear, because I'm just writing the contract for you. It's very, very important. So if there's any changes and things like that, be clear, amend it, and be clear with the other people, especially when it's dual language contract. When you have a dual language contract, like an Indonesian contract and an Australian an English contract, you have to nominate which is the binding language. So if anything goes wrong, you have to refer to one language, because the 2 different languages cannot be exactly the same. So there will be one overriding version of the contract that we look and take to court. Next one, please. Sorry, I'm going a bit fast because I'm mindful of the time. Contingency is very important. In the old days, not to worry about it. We all call it the act of God, force majeure. But then came COVID. COVID really changed a lot of things. And I think there was a big court case about whether COVID can be included insurance and things. So those are the kind of things. If you're not sure, get insurance. They are very expensive. There's a lot of different type of insurance. There's a business interruption. There is a credit insurance. There's a lot of other insurance. But make sure you have a contingency if things happen. Like, for example, I'm drafting a contract on childcare, and we've been talking about COVID. And there's an announcement, if you haven't seen, about 2 minutes ago with the Victorian government, that all childcare is now closed except for children of essential services. So if you're an operator of childcare, or if you're an owner of childcare, suddenly you're not sure whether your rent is fully payable or not payable. Those are the kind of things that you need to worry about. So just be mindful of that. Now I'm mindful of my times, and I think I'll leave that, and I'll leave it to questions now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Confer, for your really comprehensive explanations of like what's the contracts and what we need to like mindful about in like each element of the contract. We have already several questions lining up. So without further ado, I will address them one by one. The first question is, when I have Indonesian partner, should I make the contract under Indonesian law or Australian law? And if I choose Australian law, if in the future there is a dispute that might happen, can I still legally pursue my partner responsibilities? That's because I'm in Indonesia or anything.
Okay, can I answer that? I'll just answer
Yes.
one by one. Yeah.
Okay.
That is one of the most difficult questions, and thanks for asking that first question. The biggest issue for that is that it's not clear sometimes if the decision of Australian court can be used in Indonesia or if the decision by Indonesian court can be used in Australia. So I think there was I just saw a mention before. I think Audie was talking about mediation and things. So if you have that kind of arrangement, make it very clear first with your partner in Indonesia or in Australia if you're Indonesian, what's going to happen if there's a dispute. Choose a place of mediation, which is in the old days is where you fight. This is where your ring is. You know, in the old days is where you're going to fight if anything goes wrong. Because if you choose mediation, let's say Singapore, you're going to be bound by the laws of Singapore. So if you choose to fight in Indonesia, then you get yourself bound by the laws of Indonesia. If you choose to fight in Australia, get bound by law of Australia. So make that decision now before things go bad, and then you draft the contract according to that agreement. Now, if you can agree to that, then you have a big problem because you know that if anything goes wrong, it's going to go really, really bad. And on top of that, when it comes to importation, there's an extra thing which is called the Maritime Law, which is probably one of the most complicated laws ever existed because it's been going for 500 years. And it's on its own because that's international water and the whole thing. And there are a few experts, I'm not one of them, and that's outside the jurisdiction of Indonesia and outside the jurisdiction of Australia as well. Hope that covers it. Yeah. So basically, check with the other party and agree on what we call the jurisdiction. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for the answers. Still within like the area of like dispute resolution here, there's a question on like, is there any other available dispute resolution other than court?
Yes, you can agree on mediation, which is there's a mediation and there's arbitration. Difference between mediation and arbitration in most jurisdictions is that mediation is that you choose to be bound by the decision, while arbitration, you must be bound by the decision. The difference with arbitration and court is that arbitration is more like a discussion and it's cheaper. And then I believe in most jurisdictions, you don't need a lawyer for arbitration. While in court, in most jurisdictions, you do need a lawyer. So the cheapest option is mediation, but remember that a lot of mediation result is not binding. So it's just a good way to try to resolve dispute very quickly. And most contract now has a mediation procedure that you got to go mediate and then find a solution. Remember, when contract goes bad, it goes really bad. And when people are not talking to each other because we are fighting, you can't even agree on the mediator, who's the mediation. So these things can happen. So these are the kind of things that you got to figure out straight away, that if things go bad, the first thing you do is go mediation before what we call a communication breakdown. The minute you've got communication breakdown, that's the end of any amicable way to resolve it without court. Thank you.
Thank you, Confer, for that question answer. Hopefully that answers some of the questions here. The next one is slightly more complicated and I have to translate it because it's in Indonesian. But essentially it's like, let's say if I have a business partner in Indonesia who acts as a middleman in between like a producer company in Indonesia and like the company here.
Yep.
Yes, like a broker.
Yep.
Between like this company in Australia who's like probably selling or distributing it.
Yep.
What kind of contract will this kind of like business model will follow? And do you have like an example of such contract? Thank you.
Yep. I remember I'm going to say, I can't remember the number of my slides, but one of the slides that I put on is identify the parties. This is exactly why you need to identify the parties. If you're dealing with the broker and you think the broker is the party, then the contract's with the broker. But if the broker is also very clear, they will say, hang on a minute, I'm just the broker. Your contract is with my principal, which is in Indonesia. Then you're dealing directly with the principal. And anything goes wrong, the broker just becomes almost like an agent of the principal. So be very clear to the broker, who am I actually dealing with? Who am I? And usually it's very simple. Who am I paying to? If I'm paying to the broker, that means the broker is the responsible person. If anything goes wrong, it's with the broker. But if you pay directly to the people in Indonesia or vice versa, then the broker is the middleman and the broker should be treated separately. And the broker arrangement should be, and this is where it can get very complicated. The broker arrangement should be who pays the broker, because the broker cannot be paid by two parties. Otherwise, they might have a conflict of interest. So it's very important to understand who exactly paid the broker.
Okay.
Does that answer the question you were asking?
Well, we hope so. For the person who's asking that, if we need to make more clear, maybe you can ask a follow-up questions. Okay. In the meantime, I will go to the next one. Seems that like the issues of jurisdictions in here has been like the most interesting for our participants here, because there's so many issues on that. Thank you very much. Again, if we have a dispute on an issue, what is the jurisdiction law that we use? Again, Indonesia or Australia, which one that we're supposed to follow? And if you use a lawyer, how is the fee usually is it per year, or is like paid in the annual basis, or is it per transactions? And this is like it maybe like referring to like how like lawyer fees in Australia, because like this person is comparing it with the one in Jakarta. Thank you.
Look, jurisdiction again is a very difficult issue. So this is again, if you go back to my presentation, you need to agree on a jurisdiction in the contract. But let's say you don't. Then technically there are provisions in Australian law to identify jurisdictions where the transaction actually took place. But because of the cross-boundary issue, the law in Australia is not the same as the law in Indonesia. Yeah. So this is where things can get complicated. A lot of people do this, and in the end they say, oh, but I want to sue them in Indonesia. I said, look, sometimes it's not worthwhile. And one of the things that I said about as a lawyer is this: it's all about money. Yeah. When it comes to contract, it's all about money. So you got to figure out how much are you suing and how much your lawyer is going to cost. If it's going to be the same, maybe just forget about it, because law is very. There's a saying. I'm sure you heard of this: justice is blind, so everyone can get justice, right? Justice is blind and justice is everywhere, but it's expensive. That's the problem with justice. And this connects to your next question: how much is lawyer fee? Every lawyer charges differently, and the law in each country allows the lawyer to charge different way. For example, in Victoria, you cannot do a what's it called, proportional fee. In the US, you can. If you win, you get 30% of the winning, etc., etc. In Victoria, you can't. You can do a no win no fee, but it's still your fee plus an uplift, like a percentage uplift. But you cannot say, if I win, I get 30% or 50% of the income, or all the winning. In New South Wales, you can. So this kind of thing that's a bit different. So it's very important to check first where you are. In Indonesia, it's very different. In Indonesia, they can do it. Like you basically, they take 50% of the fee, etc. But in Australia, it's not. So wherever you are, using a lawyer will be very expensive. The most important thing, try to resolve it amicably through mediation or things like that with your partner. Because remember, if this was your business partner, at one point you were good friends with these people. You must have eaten with them, probably met their family. So try to resolve it that way. Try to get lawyer out of it as much as possible. But if you cannot, then when the lawyer comes in, things can get really messy very quickly. But it's probably the only solution. Yeah. So so that's what you have to keep in mind.
Okay. Thank you very much for that answer. Hopefully that answers like this participant's question. Now we have another question in terms of the contract itself, like the terms specifically. How do we identify if a contract is fair or the agreement is fair, especially if it's like two countries, like it's a bilateral contract there? And do we need to incorporate both countries' regulation, like say Indonesia and Australia's regulations, into that contract?
Thanks for that. Very good question, by the way. It's probably one of the hardest things to check whether a contract is fair. If you're a seasoned a person in that, like if you're a seasoned importer, you will roughly know because you've done enough of it, so you know what things can go wrong. My suggestion is this: on the fairness, if firstly read the contract, make sure you understand every part of the contract. Because if you don't understand every part of the contract, then you're not sure you will not know whether it's fair or not. But if you read every part of the contract and then suddenly you realize, hang on a minute, I feel that something's not right with me, usually it means it's not fair. A fair contract means you read it and you think, okay, I know exactly what my obligations are, and if anything goes wrong, I know what I can do, or I know what's going to happen to me. That is a fair contract. So I think that's the most important to see about fairness. The second question about incorporating the jurisdiction or the you were saying definition, yeah?
No, the regulations from both countries.
It's sometimes possible, but most of the time not possible, because the regulations between countries are very different. Even regulations between New South Wales and Victoria is very different. So you have to. That's why you have to agree to a jurisdiction and a law in one jurisdiction, because although the concept of justice and fairness is universal, sometimes the application can be slightly different. So it's not. I think that will create unclear, not clear or ambiguity in the contract, which might create more problem. So I suggest don't do that. Just choose one jurisdiction, and as long as you understand the jurisdiction, then you do it.
Okay, that sounds fair. Again, we have another question. Let's say the business doesn't work out, which does happen. How will I get out of the contract? How I terminate it, legally speaking?
So a good contract has a termination clause. How a contract can terminate and the effects of termination. And if it's a partnership, it's a bit like a marriage. Even though marriage doesn't actually have a contract, but a good contract has a very clear way of decoupling, how to terminate, what are the effects of the termination, if there's shareholding, what's going to happen to the shareholding, how to manage the selling of the share, the pricing of the share, etc., etc. If you don't have that, that's when things can go really bad between the two of you. So my suggestion, the first thing is have a chat with your business partner or the other person in the contract. Try to find an amicable solution. A good solution is the solution, and a fair solution. Let's talk about fairness. A very wise lawyer told me once, a fair solution means that once you sign up or once you agree on that solution, you will not feel happy, but you will not feel sad about it. You feel, okay, we're both unhappy, but it is something I can live with. If you feel too happy about a solution, usually it means the other party is not happy. So if you're not happy and the other party not happy, it's probably a fair solution. So the solution that everyone can live with is usually a fair solution. Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting outtake in here. So maybe the question on like how to choose the lawyer, does it have to be a specific lawyer here? Does it have to be commercial, business lawyer, or like can like any lawyer be able to advise on drafting a contract, for example?
Yeah, I think you need to choose lawyers that have the expertise. Yeah. But the most important, choosing a lawyer is like choosing a doctor. You got to find one that you can trust. There's no point in using the most expensive lawyer if you don't trust the lawyer. And you don't trust a lawyer if a lawyer tells you something and then you ask your friend, by the way, my lawyer told me this, but what do you think? If you then ask your friend to tell you what they think, the legal advice that your lawyer gives you, it means that you don't really trust your lawyer. Yeah, because your lawyer should know more than your friend. So if you're not sure, interview a few lawyers, speak to a few lawyers, and even pay for time to speak to a few lawyers and get one that is, for Indonesian, is struck, the one that you what's the word? It feels right. You have to get that. And I said this to a lot of clients, at any time, if they feel that they cannot trust me, they better get rid of me, because there's no point. There's no point for me to keep telling them something if they don't believe me anyway. They might as well get another lawyer, because it's not about the money, it's about trust. and a good lawyer will always try to understand your position so that they can give you the best advice if the lawyer was in your position. That's what a good lawyer should do.
This is like an interesting comment. Yeah, it's a human sense to question.
I understand that.
Yeah.
You can question, and I think you should question everything, especially what the lawyer tells you, a bit like what the doctor tells you. But put it this way: if you go to a doctor, yeah, and the doctor say you got cancer, you don't go to your friend and says, "Do you think I got cancer?" Right? You probably go to a second doctor and check. And if the second doctor said you got cancer, you might go to a third doctor. But it is kind of things that certain things, yes, you can question everything, and I think you should question everything. But there are certain things that you have to accept. And if you don't accept it, get a second opinion and then make a decision which one you like the most. Because it's a bit like a medical treatment. You don't get, this is not a restaurant, yeah. You don't go in and then eat and you don't like the food and say, okay, I won't come back. I'll just go to the restaurant next time. With lawyer, you get one chance only. Same with the doctors. If you go for operations, it's not as if you can say, oh, if it doesn't work out, I'll go for a second operation. Sometimes you don't have that opportunity. So you got to choose the right one.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. That's an interesting analogy between like lawyers and doctors. Then maybe we only have like a couple of questions left. We're calling the time. There's Indonesian people likes to talk about money and cost and everything else. We love free things.
Yeah.
How much is the rate? Like, you give like an average of like if you just ask the office, like not engaging with the lawyer yet.
Okay.
And also like later on when you go to the question, like how much is being charged per hour?
Okay.
It's like an average.
I think that's fair. Look, a lot of Asian, a lot of our clients are Asian. They don't like to pay me by the hour. They like to pay me by a task. And other than litigation, if you know what you're doing, you can actually quote for this agreement roughly costs about this between this much and that much. Yeah. Let's say for a shareholders agreement, it's going to cost you between $3,000 to $5,000. You know, I can tell you that unless it gets really complicated. But a lot of the lawyers don't want to do that. They will just charge you by the hour, and sometimes charging by the hour actually you pay less because they what's it called? Because they don't charge you by the lump sum. Don't get scared by lawyers that charge a lot of money by the hour. I'm saying this because sometimes the more expensive the lawyer is, the less time they have. So they want to finish your matter in the fastest way. The most expensive lawyers I've ever paid, and this is because we use a barrister which is a specialist, is a tax barrister, and he charged, from memory, it was 2002 an hour. Yeah, 2002 an hour. And for my client, he charges 2 hours, but I think it's worth every cent of it because a cheaper lawyer, so for my client, probably charge about 5,000, but a cheaper lawyer will probably charge 20,000 and don't get the result. Okay, so the cheapest lawyer it's probably 250, 300. Someone just asked me, what is my hourly rate? My hourly rate is about 550. My hourly rate is about 550 to about 750, depends on complexity. But I usually quote, and most of the time, if I don't need to do the work, I'll give it to the younger lawyer or the less senior lawyer, so the work can be done cheaper, because you don't really need someone to do things when it's simple stuff. But the hourly rate of a lawyer is not. Don't be scared of that because it depends on the result that you can get. And I can tell you, if you go up to the lawyers that are charging $2,000 an hour, most of the time they don't want to do your case because they're too busy. And I have got a few barristers that charging that much. I have to basically plead with them if I want to use them because they're so busy. They say, look, I don't really have time for this. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for the participations. Unfortunately, due to time constraint, we can't address any more questions. But should you have any more questions, maybe can be directed to Kajeri directly through their email as stated. Okay, because we have to go to the next session now, on our second session here, where we will have Mr. Ronnie Tay, as well as his team, Mr. Lucas and Mr. Michael, to talk about the logistics and transport of products from Indonesia to Australia. I would like to welcome Mr. Ronnie to introduce himself as well as his team. Mr. Ronnie, please.
Hi, Phoebe, thank you for the opportunity, and also Bu Muniro in inviting us into this business coaching session. Myself, Michael, and Lucas are in the retail and import wholesale industry, as well with the food and beverages. With our own retail, Grand Laguna in Hawthorne and Point Cook, and soon will be in Preston. Actually, there's another one in City, Laguna Express. With all the Indonesian products, we import everything by ourselves, including all the foods, warehouse, cleaning products, and sanitizing products as well. As of today, unfortunately, I have another agenda. I have to leave by 12. So I will, Michael and Lucas will be on my behalf to represent on the warehousing and the transporting in terms of importing products. Michael also is an expert in custom brokers and clearance. So he will be representing this session with our sister company called YTS Global Logistic as well, to help all the newbies who wants to import products to Australia. So yes, I will leave the screen to Michael, and unfortunately Lucas had problems with the video, so so he'll be able to talk, but not video, unfortunately. So I will leave it to Michael now. I will be able to join you guys later, probably in the car without video and audio, unfortunately, but I'll be a good listener. So I'll leave it to Michael now. Michael, please unmute your audio. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ronnie. We'll welcome the speakers, Mr. Michael and Mr. Lucas.
Thanks. All right, can we having the slides on, or for the, yeah. All right, hi, morning everyone. So today's I always cover the logistic parts of the importing process. All right, so we having the products run, we ready getting the products from Indonesia. So the next step is we shipping the products into Australia. So there's a things we need to look after. So firstly, the cargoes. Can we go into the next slides? All right. So before we actually moving the cargoes, moving the stock to Australia, so we need to know what type of the stock, whether if you shipping in full containers or you shipping small parcels. So we calling it loose load containers, we call LCL. So this is determines how you actually shipping the cargoes to Australia by what method. So normally the the procedure is we starting with booking a shipping lines, which tell the shipping companies the vessels where what state your stock is ready. Then normally you get a reference numbers. So from that reference numbers, it's not going to be changed. So we can tracking down all these cargoes from the beginning, the booking until arriving in Australia. Secondly, as depends on the terms of your buyings. So in importing terms, we can see FOB, which is we are free on board terms. So your supplier can give you the goods and then prepare the documents for you to clear in the destination. Or you can see CAF. So your suppliers is including the logistic charge, and then give you the cargoes in the destinations, including the ocean fees. So preparing the shipping documents, I would say normally is by the suppliers in overseas. So because they know the contents of what the product is, and then you presenting these documents to the Australian brokers. Then we also need to see how to loading the stock into the containers, or shipping the pallet stock into the consolidation warehouse. That's another process. That's if everything's done on the previously, then we need to also confirming the BLs. The bill of lading is a legal document giving the contrast between the shippers and the consignees. So that's basically tell all the cargo information, the weight, how many cartons, and when this shipping out, and then the ETA, the estimation arrival times to Australia. Then the last step is you receiving the documents from the shippers. So this is a general process of how you handle the cargo from your ordering until you receive the documents. Then it will be moving from the Indonesian side to Australian side. So you handle the rest by the local agent. Yeah, that's to cover the cargoes. Go to the next one. Yeah. All right. So warehousing is basically you have to be sure how you store the products once you get ready to shipping. I got a spelling mistake there. So normally it's two types. We call it general trade and underbound. So general trade is the normal products you buying normally a full containers from any of the suppliers in Indonesia, and then they can stuff the products. They can loading the products into containers, and then you can sending out directly from their warehouse. So the other type is underbound, which means you have the small cargoes need to be shipping out. Normally we saying LCL terms. So you have the small amount, you have to be consolidate the products is with another persons or forwarders to sending together into one containers and coming to Australia. So in that terms, you have to use the underbound warehouse, which is the agents, the brokers in Indonesia will be handle all the paperwork, receiving the stock, also loading the container on your behalf, and then coming down to Australia. So we need to consider some factors for deciding a warehouse. So firstly, the locations. So location is important. Normally we try to get a warehouse close to the port, so there's a less charge on the inland logistic cost, and also the size of the warehouse, whether they can be loading a 40-feet containers, or they can be Australians have two type of the loading method of the containers. One is calling a trailers, which is containers stay on the truck, and then you loading the stock into the containers by raising up the stock to the locations to the containers. And the easy one is side loadings, which is the containers on the ground, and then you just push the trolley and push the pallet into the containers. But unfortunately, I think Indonesia's mostly they are in trailer load. So basically, you have to get a logistic or get a warehouse capable to doing that. Yeah. The secondly is the consolidations. Means that you might be buying stock from different suppliers, or the brokers or your consolidators in Indonesia may be receiving the stock from different suppliers. So it's so in terms of the how you making a contract with them, so someone needs to be in charge of receiving the stock to check the date of the stock, and also whether it's damaged or on the transport, and the presentations, everything. So make sure the consolidation process can be done so that they can preparing a packing list based on all the consolidation products from different suppliers. Yeah, the next one is empty the containers, and this is a process is part of the exporting. So you normally receiving empty containers. before your stock ready, so it's dropping the container to the warehouse, and then they putting the stock into containers and pick up by the truck. That's also important date for your consolidators or your suppliers, so they know which day they would get ready for the stock. And then the turnaround times, which is required by the warehouse to give you a accuracy time, so you're not be late for any cutoff time from the shipping line. Normally, shipping line give you a week ahead to get your stock ready and shipping to their yard or to their port. So this is turnaround time. You have to be good. I mean, to be accurate. Yeah, that's about the warehouse, I think. Yeah. So we're talking about the partners, because the whole logistic process is
Okay. Operator, can you please check? We are losing Mr. Michael here.
Maybe we are telephoning Pak Michael now. We try to call to reach him. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. Everybody, please wait for a moment. We are having a little bit of technical difficulty here with our speaker. Please, we apologize for the inconvenience. We hope you understand. Okay. Bear with us. In the meantime, I've been seeing so many good questions here in our chat box. This is such I believe this is going to be a really good and fruitful discussion later on that we will be like addressing in our with Q&A sessions. Yes.
But maybe Mas Lucas will be there.
Okay.
Please give the
All right.
Pak Lucas. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Hello.
So Mr. Michael have like difficulty, but I hope Mr. Lucas can take over and continue our discussion. Please, Mr. Lucas.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. For now, I will be trying to answer the question first while waiting for Mr. Michael to come back.
Yes, please.
Yes. So there is the question before. For the FCL and LCL, I already answered the question. So FCL is morely to full container load, while the LCL is partial load. So depending on the persons, there is sometimes people cannot using sending a full container, which they can combine the shippers. So normally this one count on the CBMs, which is on volumes and weights of the cargo. And for the full container, for the partial container normally is a little bit harder because basically you combining a shipment, so the cost also will be slightly more expensive. So full container load is always preferred on this case. And there is a question about the general trade warehouse and the bonded warehouse. This one is how you say it, yeah? Because it's not about the product itself, depending on the product, but for the general rules, for the sums of the products is needed in the bonded warehouse when you combine, because the bonded warehouse is a third-party warehouse, which normally qualified for the custom, which when we loading the stuff, there is a people that say if in quarantine, we're saying a quarantine, the quarantine people will be checking the load. That's why not all products is allowed in the normal general trade warehouse. And But normally, if you're doing a full container load, this is allowed in the normal trade warehouse. The general rule is about the product itself, whether it's high risk products or low risk products, and then whether it is a combined shippers or not is the one need to see whether it will be in the normal warehouse or in the bonded warehouse.
All right. Thank you so much. There's still like a couple of questions. I'm not sure if you wish to like answer it right now as we are waiting for Mr. Michael here, or
Yep.
do you wish to like continue with the questions and answers?
Maybe I still continuing the question.
All right.
Which one?
Okay.
Yep.
In here, there's like one question regarding again like on freight like shipping fee. The
Yes.
question is
For
like,
the
does
ship.
Laguna open like opportunity for small businesses in Indonesia to join like a freight shipping so that they get very combined to minimize like the whole like shipping fee in general? Or is there any other like a freight forwarder contact or shipping line that can be recommended by Laguna? Please.
Okay, for this one, currently is correct. Under the COVID-19, the shipping cost for everywhere is increasing a lot. This one, we can say easily it's increasing more than 3 times than the normal. Normally, the shipping cost itself, in the normal months is okay, and then near the end of the years, normally the busy period we say is between November, December, and January. Is most of the time is double than the normal price. But currently, that price is triple to four than the normal right now. And then on top of that, the cargo itself is often not really convenient right now. There is a lot of the times the cargo will be skipping Indonesia port, which is most of the Indonesia importer is located in Jakarta and Surabaya, and the ship is not stopping in there, or the other way around, they're not stopping in the Melbourne. In the current case is a lot of happening right now. Even like currently our container often delayed to 2 to 3 weeks easily because of this case. And then for Indonesia itself, because they are on the PPKM right now, so a lot of company is not provide for export right now. And there is a difficulty on transporting the goods as well, to combine all the goods in the one warehouse to shipping to Australia. So there is a lot of problem right now, which is I think is a lot of people is experiencing right now, not only for ourselves or not only for the food industry, but for all the products right now. And then for Laguna, yes.
Mr. Lucas,
Yep.
sorry to interrupt you, but like we might have to continue your answers during our actual Q&A session, as like Mr. Michael is back here with us. We are so glad that he's back to continue his previous session earlier. Thank you very much, Mr. Lucas. Mr. Michael,
thank you.
please. Yeah, Mr. Michael.
Please unmute Michael. Please unmute your speaker.
Mr. Michael, are you here with us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Very
great,
clear.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, sorry for that. No, the computer was hanging. Yeah. So we having the slides all covered, or we haven't talked about the slides. Just now I was talking, but I don't know when I stopped. Is it already finished? Or
Not yet, Michael. Just answering all the question.
Okay.
So you continue with the slide again.
Okay. So we're talking about the warehousing solutions, yeah. After that, yeah. So I think so. I stopping somewhere around the 1 week getting the stock ready from the warehouse in Jakarta or in Indonesia and coming over to Australia. So the local agents need to be follow up to look at the documentations you're providing, and then also to give you the feedback on what products can. No, normally we're doing that actually is before we actually shipping to Australia, we need to know which products is allowed to come in, which products not. And then after we finalize the packing list, everything on the water, then the customers have to see the documentations from the factories to study, to learn the ingredients and the labels, informations, and then and the dealing with Department for Agriculture. So this is the government bodies which is control all the importing to the border. So they will be able to question you for some of the ingredients, which is in the common case, especially in the food sectors, we every containers we currently doing is having this checking process with Aquas all the times. So so the procedures we need to fulfill the requirements from in Australian law, in the Australian food standards. Then there's might be 80% of the chance there might be inspections to the in the Australian warehouse to have the officer to come in to check the actual products you put in as a sample. They won't be checked everything, but they taking maybe 5 to 10% of the products you importing. Open the boxes and then check one by one as a sample box. Then to give you a pass, or you need to changing anything to meet the standards. After the whole process, they will give you a directions to say, okay, your cargo is clear and then you're ready to release to sell. So then the agents will begin arranging a cargo delivery to your appointed warehouse or destinations. Yeah, that's pretty much about the logistics side. I think there's gonna be a lot of questions. Just now I'm talking a lot. Yeah. So right. We doing this is our contact. Is in case anyone want to ask me more questions in the futures, we ready there to answer you.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Mr. Michael,
That's
for
right.
this is a very comprehensive session again.
Yep.
Regarding logistics and warehouse. That's I hope the participants actually learn a lot today. There's as a result, there's a lot of questions here in regarding to your presentation. But before we continue to our question and answer, I would like to remind the participants to please fill our survey questions about regarding this whole program, see if it's helpful or not helpful, what we can improve. I believe the link is already in the chat. Everybody can just click on it by the end of this program if you haven't done so. Thank you so much. All right, I will go directly to the questions that are already lining up.
Yep.
All right. First question is if the Australian authority found that product that I import is not accordance with the Australian labeling regulation, what should I do in this situation? Thank you.
All right. Okay. Firstly, if it's only we're talking about label issues, it can be fixed. But the label have to be fixed under a quarantine arrangement warehousing, which is currently the 2.2 warehousing standards. So it's not that everywhere you can just fix it. You have to be fix it within their appointed warehouse. So normally the brokers will be redo an inspection time. So once they find out the problems, and then they can apply the new label for to correct the problems, and then reapplying and then rebooking another inspections. So the officer will be coming in, and then if they're happy, they can release the products.
Okay, I hope that question is already being answered. The second question, this is regarding shipping. Just in case this is some of these questions might be repeated due to some confusion earlier in the middle of session. I do apologize, but for the benefit of everybody, I will reread some of these questions. Do we need to find another shipper if we somehow have an LCL shipping?
Sorry, what, you
Michael?
come again, the questions? What's,
Do I have to find another shipper if somehow I have an LCL shipping instead of like the full one?
I don't quite understand the questions, but you mean if you already have the shipper, and then LCL is actually is the way you shipping your cargoes, your products. So shipper means your suppliers in overseas. So the overseas, normally if you dealing with one suppliers, and then you say you order 100 cases of the for example chips, and then this 100 cases of chips is definitely not fulfill the full containers. So you shipping this in the LCL terms. And then of course, normally you have to through the agents, because you cannot, unless you want to pay the full containers to just shipping 100 cases, otherwise you have to using LCL to shipping over. The durations is longer than the full FCLs, because you actually putting your stock into a consolidation container with other people's. So the local agents need to staffing the containers for everyone, and then also the Australian side need to be unpacking the containers. So this taking more times. Yep.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you so much for answering that question.
That's right. Yeah.
Because this is quite a complex presentation and it's very dense. There's still some follow-up questions regarding what is the different method on what is warehouse location that you mentioned earlier. That different mention on, sorry, I repeat that again, the different method on warehouse location, such as in trailer load. And can you please elaborate on that?
Okay, so this is actually is more into Australian side, because in Indonesian side, this is not much options. You only can choose the trailers as the loading the containers. But Australian side, normally we putting the container into the ground, because the labor cost and everything is easy to unload. So this is why you finding the warehouse you able to do this method, so they can easy to unload out, and then they can indirectly they will control the cost of your handling charge. Yeah, is that what they wanna know?
I believe so. In the interest of time, I will go to a second question, because we have quite a lot. If we want to start small on doing this exporting importing, what's the best method for shipping that you recommend?
I would suggest an LCL, because firstly you don't loading up too much stock, and you can test the market. Then I think that's pretty much the answers now. So loading smaller, yeah.
Okay, you mentioned earlier about COVID, and also Mr. Lucas also mentioned about the whole difficulties that the shipping companies are facing, or industry rather, during this COVID, where the cost triples and there's maybe delayed and everything else. Do you think we can still export during this COVID time?
It is, I think for the importer like us, we have no choice. I mean, if you stop, means that you don't have the stock to sell. This is definitely a tough time for everyone. So everyone in the same boat. So means that operations cost is actually is triple or 4 times at least. Then in the end, the result of the products could be expensive. So you have to be careful. So it's not means you buy for $1, you want to selling $1.50, it works. They might become $2, because all this process adding up the cost.
Wow, that must be quite a challenge here.
Yeah.
A little bit on the shipping again. How much kilograms of goods are being categorized under LC?
The kilos. I mean, how much kilo goods are being categorized need to be LC.
LC might refer to this LCL shipping.
LCL shipment. Okay, this not really into the kilos. Normally in the sea cargoes, we're talking about cubic weight. So it means that you do a dimensions of your totals plus the gross weight. So we taking the bigger numbers. So this is a very heavy stuff. Then we're using weight. Otherwise, we're using the size. So it's the size per kilo is more than the weight. And then, yeah, to shipping, how to say that? So if there's a, because there's a lot of like a one-off charges to do the LCL shipment. So it really depends on whether you're worth it to shipping one boxes, because you pay $10,000, for example, for the transport, everything, declarations, everything, and then you're probably not worth it to doing a small amount. But yeah, it's maximized amount will be depending how you can sell the products. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that answer.
Yep.
Next question. If Authority of Australia came to inspect my imported goods, should I pay the administrative fee for inspection, or is it free of charge?
Yes, unfortunately, they are charging per hours. And then those Australian peoples, you know, they doing slow. So we cannot bargain on the price. So they have to standard charge per hours. I believe it's like say, for example, for standard maybe 2-hour sections, they're charging about $600. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty hefty fees.
Mm.
Might be like a good caution for everybody to like double
It's
check
quite
before.
expensive. Yeah. Also,
Yeah,
very
before you actually send.
Yeah. To be fair, I mean, to be fair, say sometimes it also depends on the luck. So like a established business like us, we have been dealing with the inspectors all the times. So they get familiar. They know we follow the protocol, we follow the standards. So they relate it a bit easier because they know we do the right thing in the past 10 years. And for something new, they might be restricted. They'll be giving a hard time because they try to dig in and find the problems. They make sure you follow the rules. Yeah, this can be
Right.
phase 2. Mm-hmm.
See, here we go. There's another warning for our participants who are willing to do a transaction abroad. It's not as simple.
Yeah.
And we actually thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, especially because Asian food is very lot of ingredients. So and then these things is very targeting by Australian border control. So that's why the harder time is always can be happening the first time. So once they have the record of the importing record, maybe 5 or 10 times, they become lower. They have the number to play in their system too. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for that answer.
No
very,
problem.
very comprehensive.
Yep.
Another question. How do you find a good or honest logistic partner?
All right. So to finding that I think that's have to be is more like you trial of different people and then you find a good one in the end. For us, because we also you're already in this industry, so for us we have a lot of trade partners over in Indonesia. So basically we choose the one have the good service, because Australian is we have a higher labor. So it now means that we have to find a cheaper one in overseas in order to cut the cost. But for my suggestions, the quality is important. So they might be a bit expensive, but they get a thing done in a great way. So you save the process, you save the hassles with back and forth. So that's important too. Yeah.
All right. That
Yep.
sounds good. So Michael, what sort of scenario do you reckon is a custom broker needs to be engaged?
What sort of I think any scenarios, as long as you put in the importing goods, you have to get a broker, unless you have licensed yourself to be customs brokers. Yeah, I think you cannot get away with the brokers, but the involvement of the broker can be comprehensive starting from Indonesian side all the way to Australians. We call it DDP, so duty paid. So we can doing the whole things, or you can just need a brokers to clear your custom, and then you do the rest. Like you order the truck yourself, you can do these things. So depends on knowledge you involve, and then so the broker can be coming any stage.
All right.
Yeah.
Hope that answers the question. Still on the logistics side, there's a question. This is quite interesting one. Lee, how do we know if it's like the logistic company is legal or illegal due to like that many like logistics like companies that offers or like promoting their services?
What is that exactly means, legal or legal logistic? So
yes, Maybe for the person who's asking the question, can you kindly clarify your question, please?
Yeah.
Legal or illegal, is this like the logistic as in like
The
the
product
company
itself.
service or like the product? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Michael, in the meantime, I have
Mhm.
another question actually.
Yeah.
This is a pre-prepared one that I have. Unfortunately, the person who's like asking this question
Yep.
is can't be here. But the question is like, let's say they're importing a product from Indonesia, and
Yep.
there is like the goods is like detained in Indonesia.
Yep.
And then like you have to like be able to like fulfill that quota like within a certain time. How do you best like solve this kind of like hurdles?
So means the I don't get the part, the first part, the Indonesian parts. What was the problem?
The goods is being detained there, like let's say in the port or anything.
Like a meat product or something. What was that?
It can be any product that's being like detained, as in like it cannot be boarded or cannot be shipped to Australia where it's supposed to be, right?
Okay, so if the product is on the water, so this come in already to the border. Is that what you mean? It's not
No,
cannot.
it cannot like.
Yeah.
It cannot leave the port in Indonesia, for example.
Okay, so normally I think local Indonesian side, the licensing, everything you need to sort out with the suppliers. Most likely the Indonesian parts shouldn't be problems because there's agricultural products coming out straight away. It's pretty straightforward. So the problems actually is mostly into Australian border here. So some certain products they're not allowed to come in. So in that case, if the customers is find out, and most likely they will find out from your packing list, so they will be discharged. So you need to actually discharge the products while they come in.
Okay. All right. I would like to go back to that question again about the legal or illegal logistics. This person has clarified as if like, is this company registered in Australia? So it's a company legal entity here.
Okay. How to check back to the government? So if it's logistic company here in Australia, they need to have ABN. There's no certain, I think, so anyone can be a logistic company if they choose to, and I think they're selling as a service, as the knowledge as service. So it's not able. I mean, yeah, if you cannot find their ABN, is something wrong. But if it's if it's ABN's register, is legal trading. So Australian company law here is not saying you have to be certain licensed to be logistic company. But normally logistic company have to have a licensed broker to dealing with custom direct. There's a qualifications involved. And then plus all the warehousing standards, like I mentioned, right now we're talking about the food, so we need to quarantine 2.2 approved. So that's a warehouse standards. And then if the underbound will be underbound 1.3 approved, so that's also a qualification from the Australian government. Yeah, is that means clear?
I hope that actually answers like the questions.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for more questions as we go. But this is an interesting discussions that we brought up. Like it's quite complicated, to be honest, for like on like both people who are from Indonesia coming into Australia and Australia maybe coming out.
Yep. There's a lot of
right
ratings there. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right. If in the interest of time, I might have to close this like question and answers session very, very soon. We apologize if there is any questions that like remain unanswered, but I believe that like even like outside of this session, if you do have a follow-up questions, you can direct that directly to our the economics team of the Consulate General. Their email is being stated here in our maybe it's in the chat, or if not, then can please somebody put that on our chat for like a link to like a question, so you can direct that to this email. Again, once again, your questions and feedbacks are very, very important to us. do fill up the questionnaire form for our survey purpose in here. We already put the link for the questionnaire in our chat. Thank you very much. Well, since there's yeah, we now reached towards the end of our program. Actually, thank you very much for all of the participants who are here with us. It concludes our 4th week of the business coaching series. We would like to remind you that like next week will be like the 5th and final week of this entire series, with our main topic will be on digital transformation in business. This 5th week will also cover topics on how to establish startup in Australia, learning everything about e-commerce, how to apply digital technology in business, including regulations surrounding e-commerce and steps by steps to develop an e-commerce platform in Australia. It's a very interesting platform. It's a very interesting program, and we would love you to join us. Registration is now open, and you can find more details about it on the Consulate General's Instagram account at Indonesian in Melbourne. We'll be joined by like several interesting speakers here from including one of them is the CEO of Navanti Holdings. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us in here. We'd like also to remind you there will be a networking session at the end of the 5th week for everybody to mingle, for business owners or future entrepreneurs to get to know each other and talk to each other. Thank you very much, everybody, for your participations. Thank you for the whole team of the economics team in KJRI for making this possible. And we'd like to thank you for all of the partners who are already joining us, both industry and education partner that's already joining us for all of these sessions. We'd like to see you next week. Thank you, everyone.